My name is Monique Patterson. I'm 27 years old, and this is the story of how my younger sister totaled my dream car, offered me 50 quid for my troubles, and somehow still managed to position herself as the victim. Truly, if there were Olympic medals for emotional manipulation, my family would sweep the podium. Gold, silver, bronze, the whole bloody lot. Let me set the scene properly. After 3 years of living like a Victorian orphan, and I mean proper Victorian orphan, the kind who counted pennies and ate gruel, I finally bought myself a Tesla Model 3. Brand new. Gleaming white. Autopilot features that made me feel like I was living in a science fiction film where things actually worked. This wasn't just a car, you understand. This was a monument. A testament to every extra shift I'd pulled, every dinner invitation I declined, every time I'd chosen my Netflix subscription over an actual social life. And then my sister borrowed it. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. Because nothing says family bonding quite like crowdsourcing your global audience whilst your sibling plots your vehicular demise. Spoiler alert, she crashed it. Comprehensively. Spectacularly. Into a pole in Irving, a full 25 miles from where she claimed to be going. When I found her at the scene, surrounded by her mates, who scattered like cockroaches when the lights came on, she had the absolute goal to hand me $50 and say, "Idiot. Take it and leave." $50. For a car I'd spent 3 years saving for. The maths alone was insulting. When I rang our parents expecting, I don't know, perhaps a modicum of accountability, they told me it was just a joke, and I should let it go. As if $17,000 worth of crumpled metal and shattered dreams was merely an amusing anecdote we'd all laugh about at Christmas. Reader, I did not let it go. What I did next apparently left them all stunned. Though between you and me, the bar for stunning this lot was disappointingly low. I could have sneezed aggressively and they'd have clutched their pearls. Let me take you back. Way back. To the halcyon days of my childhood in suburban Dallas, where I first learned that fairness was a myth propagated by greeting card companies and primary school teachers who should have known better. I have a sister, Brandy. She's 4 years younger than me, which apparently translated to exempt from consequences in the parenting manual my folks were using. I suspect it was published sometime during the Dark Ages, possibly written in crayon. When I was 9, I spent weeks, actual calendar-marked weeks, on an art project for school. Poured my little soul into it. The night before it was due, Brandy destroyed it. Just annihilated it. With what I can only describe as gleeful malice. And whilst I stood there, staring at the ruins of my papier-mâché dreams, my parents told me to redo it overnight because, and I quote, "She's just a kid, Monique. You should have been more careful." Ah yes. I should have been more careful. Not the tiny agent of chaos who deliberately sabotaged me. No. The onus was entirely on 9-year-old me to anticipate and prevent acts of domestic terrorism. This set rather a troubling precedent, as you might imagine. In secondary school, she nicked my brand new laptop, the one I'd saved for over months of weekend shifts at a local cafe that smelled persistently of burnt toast and broken dreams. She didn't ask permission. Just took it. And then, in a move that was either incredibly stupid or brilliantly calculated, the jury's still out, she spilled an entire fizzy drink on it. The keyboard died. The hard drive became a very expensive paperweight. My parents' response? It's a shared lesson, Monique. You need to learn to share. Share. The laptop. She'd stolen. And destroyed. The logic was so profoundly absent, I briefly wondered if we were all living in some sort of elaborate social experiment. Perhaps there were cameras hidden in the walls and a psychology professor somewhere was taking notes. Subject continues to expect rational responses from clearly irrational family unit. Fascinating. But wait, it gets better. Because of course it does. When I was 17, Brandy threw a party whilst our parents were away at some conference. A party. The sort that ends with furniture broken, questionable stains on every surface, and over £1,000 in damage. I wasn't even there. I was at the library, being a proper swat, studying for exams that actually mattered. And yet, when our parents came home to their wrecked house, I got grounded too. The reasoning? I should have been watching her better. Let me say that again for the cheap seats. I got punished for not preventing my younger sister from hosting an unsupervised rager whilst I was in an entirely different location. At that point, I gave up on justice as a concept. It clearly wasn't real. It was just something people said to make children behave, like Father Christmas or the Tooth Fairy, except less believable and significantly more disappointing. By the time I reached university, I developed a coping strategy that basically amounted to keep your head down, work yourself into dust, and get the hell out. I went to the University of Texas at Dallas, studying marketing because I was good with words and bad at confrontation, a combination that seemed professionally viable. I cobbled together partial scholarships, student loans that would haunt me until I was approximately 90, and multiple part-time jobs at local shops where I smiled at customers who treated retail workers like particularly inconvenient furniture. The money was always tight. After loan payments and rent on my shoebox apartment in Plano, and when I say shoebox, I mean the walls were so thin I could hear my neighbor's digestive system, I had about 70 pence left over for luxuries like food and not freezing to death. But I had a plan. A beautiful, shining plan that kept me going through every tedious shift, every condescending customer, every moment when I wanted to pack it all in and become a hermit in the woods somewhere. I was going to buy a Tesla Model 3. Laugh if you want. I can hear you from here. A Tesla? That's your dream? Not world peace or ending hunger. But here's the thing. That car represented freedom. Independence. Proof that I could set a goal and actually achieve it without anyone's help, despite a family that seemed determined to anchor me to the seabed of their dysfunction. For 3 years, I saved 30% of every paycheck. 30%. Do you know what that means? That means I packed sad little lunches in Tupperware whilst my colleagues went to actual restaurants. It means I said no to every single trip, every night out, every moment of spontaneous joy because I was saving for something mine. Whilst my university mates were off having threesomes with regret and tequila, I was at home, watching my savings account grow with the sort of obsessive devotion usually reserved for cult members. And it worked. 3 years later, I walked into that Tesla dealership. Well, walked is generous. I practically floated, and I bought my car. In cash. No loans. No payment plans. Just straight cash from my account that I'd built penny by excruciating penny. The day I drove it home was electric. Pun absolutely intended. It was sleek. It was white. It was mine. Every curve of it represented a dinner I'd skipped, a party I'd missed, a moment of fun I'd sacrificed. But it was worth it. God, it was worth it. When I pulled up to my parents' house in Plano for Sunday dinner, because apparently I'm a glutton for punishment, Dad came out first. He circled it like a shark assessing prey, asked about the range and charging capabilities, then said, "You could have picked something cheaper, Monique. A hybrid would have been better value." Right. Yes. Thank you for that unsolicited financial advice, Father. Here I was, thinking I'd achieved something, but clearly I'd done it wrong. How silly of me. Mum was warmer, at least. She hugged me, said it looked sharp, though she immediately added that I should be thinking about saving for a condo next because apparently one major financial achievement wasn't enough. I needed to be working on the next one like some sort of capitalist hamster on a wheel. But Brandy, oh Brandy. Her eyes went narrow the moment she saw it. She traced her finger along the door handle with this look that I can only describe as calculating malice mixed with envy. "Sis finally treated herself," she said, her voice dripping with that particular brand of sarcasm that sounds friendly to outsiders but translates to pure venom when you know the speaker. "Didn't think you had it in you. That should have been my first warning. The second should have been the entire history of our relationship. But I'm an optimist, apparently. Or possibly just thick. The jury's still out." Several weeks after I'd bought the Tesla, we had another family dinner. Mum's baked chicken, always reliable if aggressively bland, filled the house with that particular smell of suburban contentment that's meant to mask all underlying dysfunction. Dad droned on about his retail management job, which apparently involved a lot of inventory spreadsheets and dealing with customers who treated him like a particularly unfortunate NPC in their shopping quest. Brandy was unusually quiet, glued to her phone with the sort of focus usually reserved for bomb disposal experts. We were nearly finished when Mum, making conversation in that forced way she has, asked about the Tesla. How's it handling the Dallas traffic? Before I could answer, before I could launch into my prepared speech about regenerative braking and surprisingly intuitive controls, Brandy jumped in. It's amazing, she said. I took a quick spin last week. Smooth as silk. I blinked. She hadn't asked permission. She'd just shown up at my flat one day, demanded to try it, and I'd been too shocked by the sheer audacity to say no immediately. By the time I'd gathered my thoughts, she was already in the driver's seat, fiddling with the touchscreen like she owned it. Dad laughed. For what it cost, it better be. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Nothing says family support like immediately reducing your achievement to a price tag, then implying you were overcharged. Then Brandy set her fork down with a decisive clink that should have activated every warning bell in my nervous system. Actually, she said, I need to borrow it tomorrow. The room went still. You know that moment in films where everything goes silent and ominous? It was exactly like that, except with more residual chicken smell. Borrow it. I repeated slowly, hoping I'd misheard. Perhaps she'd said, burrow, and was planning to dig a hole. That would have made more sense. Yeah. Big client pitch in Richardson. My Honda's acting up again, and showing up in a Tesla would really seal the deal. Make me look successful, you know. I stared at her. Why not take an Uber? Too expensive, she said immediately, as if she'd prepared for this question. And it looks unprofessional. Right. An Uber, a perfectly respectable mode of transport, was unprofessional. But showing up in your sister's car that you'd bullied her into lending you? That was the height of professional conduct. I could feel Mum and Dad watching me. That familiar pressure building. The unspoken expectation that I'd cave, like I always did, because that's what we did in this family. Brandy wanted something, and I was expected to provide it, and everyone else would facilitate that transaction with absolutely no regard for my feelings on the matter. Dad cleared his throat. Sounds important for her career, Monique. Mum nodded enthusiastically. And your Honda did stall last month, Brandy. That's dangerous on the motorway. I felt the walls closing in. Every instinct screamed at me to say no, to protect what was mine. But the weight of their expectations, 2 decades of conditioning to be the good daughter who smoothed things over and didn't make waves, pressed down like a physical force. It's brand new, I said weakly. Insurance complications if someone else drives it. Brandy's face crumpled in that practiced way she had. The manipulation technique she'd perfected over 23 years of getting exactly what she wanted. Just a few hours, she pleaded. I'll be so careful. Please. 3 pairs of eyes on me. Waiting. Judging I caved. Obviously I caved. But I set rules. Specific, clear rules that even a moderately intelligent golden retriever could follow. Straight to the meeting and back, I said firmly. No stops. No passengers. No one else in the car under any circumstances. And you bring it back by 4 o'clock. Brandy agreed immediately. Enthusiastically. Deal. Absolutely. Promise. Looking back, the speed with which she agreed should have been my 3rd, 4th, and 5th warning. When Brandy agrees to terms that quickly, it usually means she has absolutely no intention of following them. But I'm apparently a slow learner. The next morning, Brandy showed up at my flat obscenely early, buzzing with that manic energy she gets when she's about to do something catastrophically stupid but hasn't quite done it yet. I walked her through the controls again. The autopilot sensitivity. The charging port location. The emergency brake. Everything a responsible car owner does before handing their vehicle to someone they have approximately zero faith in. Straight to Richardson and back, I repeated, probably for the 15th time. No detours. No extras. Got it, sis, she said, barely listening. already mentally wherever people go when they've decided your instructions are optional guidelines rather than actual rules. I watched her drive away, that familiar knot of anxiety tightening in my stomach. The knot that had been there since childhood, the one that appeared whenever Brandy was involved in anything remotely important. But I pushed it down, as one does, and went to work. I was in the middle of a client call, discussing social media engagement strategies with someone who thought hashtags were still cutting edge, when my phone started buzzing. Once. Twice. 3 times. 3 missed calls from Brandy. My stomach dropped to somewhere around my knees. Then a text. Emergency. Call now. I excused myself from the call, probably impolitely, but I was having what I believe the young people call a moment, and rang her back. She answered sobbing. Full theatrical sobs, the kind you hear in period dramas when someone's learned their lover has died in the war. Monique, she wailed. There's been a crash. The Tesla. I'm so sorry, but it wasn't my fault. My entire body went cold. That particular kind of cold that starts in your chest and radiates outward until even your fingertips feel like they're made of ice. Are you hurt? I asked, because I'm apparently a decent human being even when I want to commit fratricide. I'm fine, she sniffled. Just rattled. But the car. She gave me an address. In Irving. Irving. Not Richardson. 25 bloody miles in the opposite direction from where she was supposed to be. Stay there, I said through clenched teeth. I'm coming. I ordered a rideshare, watching the estimated arrival time tick down whilst my brain ran through every possible scenario, each one worse than the last. The journey took 25 minutes that felt like approximately 7 years. When I arrived at the scene, the reality was somehow worse than anything I'd imagined. My Tesla. My beautiful white mine Tesla that I'd saved 3 years for, was crumpled against a utility pole. The entire front end was smashed. Bumper mangled. Headlights obliterated. It looked like a particularly violent modern art installation titled, Everything Monique Works For Gets Destroyed Eventually. Police lights flashed. A tow truck idled nearby, ready to take my demolished dreams to whatever graveyard they send dead cars to. And there was Brandy, talking to a police officer, with 3 of her mates standing off to the side looking guilty as hell. 3 passengers. After I'd explicitly, said no passengers. What happened? I demanded, stalking over. The officer consulted his notes. Vehicle was speeding in a 30-mile zone. Driver lost control on a turn. Hit the pole. Driver's been cited for reckless operation. I turned to Brandy, who suddenly found the ground fascinating. The meeting got pushed back, she mumbled. So I met some friends for brunch. Didn't think it would matter. Didn't think it would matter. I repeated, my voice climbing octaves. You had friends in my car? She shifted uncomfortably. Just a quick stop. The Tesla handles differently than my Honda. Too powerful. I wasn't used to it. The officer cleared his throat. Also found an open beer can inside the vehicle. The world tilted slightly. The driver claims it belonged to a passenger, he continued, consulting his notes. I stared at Brandy. She stared back with those wide, innocent eyes she'd weaponized since childhood. It was from last night, she said quickly. Not mine. Totally not mine. You're overreacting. Overreacting. My car was wrapped around a pole like some sort of vehicular pretzel. She'd violated every single rule I'd set. There was alcohol involved, and I was overreacting. Her friends, reading the room with the survival instincts of gazelles spotting a lion, mumbled quick goodbyes. We've got plans, one said. Uber home or something. They scattered like leaves in the wind, leaving Brandy to face the consequences of her actions. Except we both knew she wouldn't, really. She never did. Can you drive me back? She asked, her voice small. I gestured at the wreckage. With what car, Brandy? We shared a rideshare in absolute silence. She occasionally glanced at me, probably trying to gauge my mood, but I stared resolutely out the window, watching Dallas pass by, thinking about how I'd quite like to live alone on a remote island where siblings couldn't destroy expensive things. Halfway through the journey, she broke the silence. Insurance will fix this, she said, as if that solved everything. No big deal. I didn't respond. Couldn't trust what would come out. Mum and Dad will smooth it over, she continued, that familiar smirk creeping back. They always do. At her flat, she pulled out her wallet and extracted $50. 50 pounds. 50 units of currency that were meant to somehow compensate for thousands in damage. Idiot, she said, shoving it at me. Take it and leave. That covers petrol or whatever. I took it. Not because I thought it was adequate, I'm not concussed, but because I was too stunned to do anything else. She walked away, and I sat there in the rideshare, watching the fare climb on my app, thinking about how this was definitely, absolutely, certainly the last time I'd let any of them use me, narrator's note. This was not actually the last time I'd let them try, but it was the last time I'd succeed. That evening, Dad rang. Come over, he said. Not a request. A summons. We need to discuss this. I drove my rental car, because of course I had to hire a bloody rental now, to Plano, arriving at their house to find them arranged in the living room like some sort of dysfunctional tribunal. Mum hugged me immediately. Such a scary day. Thank God no one was hurt. Right. Yes. Thank God. Never mind the $17,000 of devastation. The important thing was that Brandy's reckless behavior hadn't resulted in actual physical harm, which apparently meant we could all just move past it. Dad gestured for me to sit. I remained standing because I'm petty like that. Brandy's explained everything, he said. It was a simple mishap. An accident. An accident, I repeated flatly. Brandy sat between them, eyes puffy, though whether from genuine distress or strategic crying, I couldn't say. Probably the latter. She admits she bent the rules a bit with the friends, Mum said gently, as if bent the rules was an accurate description for violated literally every instruction. But the crash itself was unavoidable, Dad added. The road curved sharply. Could have happened to anyone. Could have happened to anyone, I said, my voice dead. Who was speeding? With unauthorized passengers. And alcohol in the vehicle. Dad waved this away like an annoying fly. Young mistakes. Family forgives. Ah yes. The family forgives. The family always forgives. The family would probably forgive arson at this point if Brandy was holding the matches. I'm sorry, Brandy said, her voice small and practiced. What more do you want? What did I want? What did I want? I wanted her to genuinely understand what she'd done. I wanted my parents to actually hold her accountable for once in her 23 years. I wanted to live in a universe where actions had consequences and fairness was real. But we don't always get what we want, do we? Insurance might not cover this fully, I said, trying to keep my voice level. Not with her lies. Not with the violations. Mum looked uncomfortable. They will though. Surely they will. Let's not blow this out of proportion. It's just a joke gone wrong, Dad said, his tone firming up in that way it did when he'd made a decision and expected everyone to fall in line. Drop it. For the sake of the family. This isn't funny, I said, feeling something crack inside me. Something that had been holding on for 27 years. She wrecked what I built. What I earned. Brandy rolled her eyes, and said, always so dramatic. Get over it. Get over it. The words hung in the air like pollution. I'd heard variations of this my entire life. Get over it. Don't make a fuss. It's not that serious. Be the bigger person. Let it go. The meeting ended with them expecting me to cave, like I always had. To swallow my anger, accept the non-apology, and move on because that's what kept the family peace. But as I left their house that night, something was different. I wasn't caving this time. The following morning, I skipped my usual coffee ritual and rang Tyrone, my insurance agent. We'd met at a networking event months ago, one of those excruciating affairs where everyone pretends to care about each other's businesses whilst secretly calculating how useful everyone else might be. But Tyrone was actually decent. Competent. The sort of person who returns calls and doesn't make you want to fake your own death just to avoid another phone conversation. "Monique, what's happening?" he asked when I explained the situation. I laid out the basics. The borrowed car. The crash in Irving. The passengers. The open beer can the police had noted. "Send me the report," he said immediately. "I'll review it and contact claims." I headed to Irving Police Station, which was exactly as depressing as you'd imagine a police station to be. Fluorescent lights that made everyone look deceased. Chairs that had witnessed too much of humanity's worst moments. That particular smell of industrial cleaning products mixed with despair. The officer handed over the report, multiple pages documenting my sister's catastrophic decision-making. Back at my flat, I spread everything across my kitchen table like some sort of insurance crime scene investigator. The report was damning. Properly, comprehensively damning. Brandy had been doing 45 in a 30 zone. The Tesla had swerved before impact. Multiple witnesses described erratic driving. And there was that pesky alcohol container, sitting in plain view, like a smoking gun made of aluminium. Brandy had claimed it belonged to a friend. No sobriety test had been administered because no one seemed obviously drunk, but still. The evidence painted a clear picture of recklessness so profound it could have been an art installation. I scanned everything and emailed it to Tyrone. "This changes things," he said after reviewing it. "Your policy has limits on permissive drivers, especially ones outside your household. The violations, wrong location, unauthorized passengers, the citation, these complicate approval significantly." "How complicated?" I asked, though I already knew I wouldn't like the answer. "Worst case. They deny the claim entirely. Best case. You pay the £1,000 deductible and your premiums increase about $700 annually for 3 years. I did the maths in my head. £3,100 total, out of my pocket, for the privilege of my sister destroying my property. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. While I waited for Tyrone's update, I did what any sensible person in the digital age does. I stalked social media. One of Brandy's friends, let's call her enabler number 2, had posted a story the night before the crash. A video clip from inside my Tesla, showing Brandy behind the wheel, laughing maniacally, music blasting, a beer can visible in the cup holder, her mates cheering as she accelerated. The timestamp matched the police report exactly, save the clip with the sort of grim satisfaction usually reserved for prosecutors discovering the murder weapon. This was proof. Incontrovertible, digital, time-stamped proof of everything. The unauthorized joyride, the reckless behavior, the casual destruction of my property and peace of mind. "Got you," I muttered to my empty flat. Tyrone rang back the next afternoon. "Claims adjuster wants a statement. I'll join the call tomorrow." I spent that evening organizing everything. Text messages from Brandy confirming the rules. No stops, no passengers, back by 4. Screenshots of her social media posts showing she clearly hadn't lost a job despite her later claims. Bank records showing my parents' money transfers. The next day's call was recorded. Professional. Procedural. I explained the agreement in excruciating detail. Every rule. Every promise. Every violation. I sent them the texts. The video. Everything. The adjuster noted significant discrepancies with Brandy's version of events. Apparently she'd told them I'd given her open permission to use the car however she wanted. A lie. Obviously a lie. But not surprising. "We've interviewed her," the adjuster said carefully. She mentioned the meeting time might shift and that casual use was implicitly approved. "That's not what happened," I said, keeping my voice level despite wanting to scream. "I have proof. They reviewed everything." The video was particularly helpful, the adjuster noted with professional understatement. By helpful, he meant completely incriminating, but insurance people speak in euphemisms. 2 days later, Tyrone called with the verdict. "They've approved it under collision coverage. But there are conditions." Of course there were conditions. There are always conditions. You pay the £1,000 deductible. And expect your premiums to increase about $700 annually for 3 years. That's due to the citation and other risk factors. £3,100, that's what Brandy's mishap was going to cost me. I contacted a repair shop in Plano that specialized in electric vehicles. Their estimate came in at £15,000 for front-end damage, battery diagnostics, alignment, and whatever other mechanical nightmares I didn't understand. Insurance would cover most of it after the deductible, but the financial and emotional cost was staggering. With everything documented, police file, video evidence, text messages, insurance approval, I prepared copies for the family. Tyrone suggested consulting a small claims solicitor if needed. Your case is solid for reimbursement, he said. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me, feeling my resolve crystallize into something harder and sharper than it had been before. This wasn't just about the Tesla anymore. This was about 27 years of being the family doormat, and I was done. A week later, armed with my folder of damning evidence, I drove back to my parents' house. Mum had laid out dinner. Lasagna this time, which felt like a transparent attempt to soften me up through carbohydrates. As if cheese and pasta could somehow compensate for a lifetime of favoritism and willful blindness. Curtis and Loretta sat across from Brandy, who was doing her best impression of someone who hadn't recently committed vehicular destruction. Let's talk this through, Dad started, using his retail manager voice. The one that said he'd already decided how this would end and we were all just going through the motions. I opened my folder, sliding copies to each of them with the systematic precision of a prosecutor presenting evidence. This is the police report, I said, my voice steady. It shows Brandy was speeding at 45 in a 30 zone. Swerving. With passengers and an open beer can. Mum's eyes widened as she read. You said it was just a sharp turn, she murmured to Brandy. I continued relentlessly. This is the insurance letter. They've approved the claim, but I'm liable for £1,000 deductible. My premiums will increase £700 annually for 3 years. That's £3,100 total. Dad leaned back, rubbing his chin in that way he did when he was about to say something infuriating. That's steep, Monique. But accidents happen. Accidents. I repeated, feeling my voice sharpen. She lied about where she was going. Had unauthorized passengers. And there's video evidence. I pulled out my phone, playing the clip. Brandy's laughter echoed obscenely in the quiet room. The music. The beer can. Her mate cheering as she accelerated recklessly. This proves she violated every single rule I set. Brandy's face flushed. It's not like I planned to crash. That video's out of context. Out of context. The universal excuse of people who've been caught doing exactly what it looks like they were doing. She's sorry, Monique, Mum said, reaching for Brandy's hand in solidarity. She didn't mean it. I shook my head, that old familiar frustration bubbling up. Sorry doesn't repair my car. I want her to pay the £3,100. Dad frowned. That's rather a lot for her. She's just starting her career. So am I shot back. I saved for 3 years to buy that Tesla. She treated it like a toy. Brandy crossed her arms defensively. You're blowing this massively out of proportion. I don't have that kind of money. Then set up a payment plan, I said. £200 a month until it's covered. You caused this. Mum's voice went soft, pleading. Can't we split it? We're family. Ah yes. We're family. The universal get out of jail free card. The magical phrase that's meant to erase all accountability because shared DNA apparently exempts people from basic human decency. No, I said firmly. This is about her taking responsibility. Not me bailing her out again. Brandy scoffed, her tone dripping with theatrical defiance. What are you going to do? Sue me. You wouldn't dare. I met her eyes. Held them. Steady. I've already spoken to a solicitor about small claims court. The evidence is comprehensive. Text messages, video footage, police report. I'd rather settle this here, like adults. But I will file if necessary. The room went silent. That particular heavy silence that means everyone's recalculating. Dad shifted uncomfortably. Monique, that's rather extreme. Family doesn't drag family to court. Family doesn't destroy family's property and refuse to pay for it either, I countered. But here we are. Brandy smirked faintly, sensing their support. See. They understand. You're being completely unreasonable. Unreasonable. I stood up, gathering my folder. I've spent my entire life cleaning up her messes. Broken laptops. Destroyed rooms. Now my car. This ends now. Dad tried to mediate, his voice taking on that forced calm. Let's all calm down. Perhaps we can help with half. No, I said. She pays, or I file with the court. Those are the options. Brandy's smirk faded. I can't pay that much. You're just trying to humiliate me. You've humiliated yourself, I said, walking towards the door. Figure out how to make this right, or I will. I left them sitting there, stunned and silent, probably still expecting me to cave like I always had. But I wouldn't. Not this time. 2 weeks later, something miraculous happened. Brandy made her first payment. £200 appeared in my account via a payment app, accompanied by the world's most passive-aggressive message. Payment 1. Done. I acknowledged it professionally. Didn't gush with thanks or praise because why would I? She wasn't doing me a favor. She was paying for damage she'd caused. That's not generosity. That's basic accountability. But a month later, the second payment never arrived. Instead, I got a text claiming she'd been made redundant from her marketing position. Couldn't afford to pay right now. Could I possibly give her a few months? She added a sad emoji for good measure because apparently that's how we communicate complex financial obligations now. Through tiny pictographic faces, I didn't buy it for a second. Her social media told a different story entirely. Posts from cocktail bars. Weekend trips to Austin. Photographs of expensive brunches where she'd apparently paid for everyone. Not exactly the behavior of someone facing financial hardship. Unless hardship had been redefined to mean temporarily inconvenienced by having to be responsible. I rang Tyrone, who had contacts at Brandy's firm through his networking circle, because Dallas is simultaneously massive and ridiculously small. She's still employed, he confirmed after making a few discreet inquiries. No redundancies in her department whatsoever. My jaw clenched so hard I'm surprised my teeth didn't shatter. I checked my banking app, looking for patterns. And there they were, clear as day. Small deposits from Curtis and Loretta's joint account flowing into Brandy's. Each one around £200, timed suspiciously close to when my payments were due. They were bankrolling her. Slipping her money to maintain her lifestyle whilst she dodged her obligations to me. The sheer audacity was almost impressive. Almost, I confronted her over the phone, keeping my voice level despite wanting to reach through the device and throttle her. You're still working. Why lie about being made redundant? Her voice turned immediately defensive. Things are tight, all right? I'm figuring it out. And the money from Mum and Dad. I pressed. You're using that to go out, not to pay me back. She hung up. Just ended the call like that solved anything. I rang Curtis next, my patience worn thinner than tissue paper. Are you and Mum sending Brandy money? He hesitated, always a bad sign, then admitted. We're just helping her through a rough patch. You know how difficult it is starting out. I know exactly how difficult it is, I said coldly. I did it without anyone's help. She's lying about her job to avoid paying me, and you're enabling her. He sighed, that long-suffering sigh he'd perfected over the years. She'll pay when she can. Don't make this a war, Monique. Loretta took the phone, her voice taking on that pleading quality. She's trying, love. Give her time. Time. Always time. More time. Infinite time. Never accountability. Never consequences. Just endless patience for someone who'd never once shown anyone else the same consideration. I pulled up bank records, cross-referencing dates. Their transfers matched every single missed payment. The pattern was so obvious a particularly dim child could have spotted it. Then Tyrone called with even better news. Brandy contacted the insurance company again, he said. Claimed you'd pressured her into a false statement. She's trying to shift blame, hoping to dodge liability entirely. That was it. That was the final straw. The last thread of patience snapped with an almost audible pinged, sat at my desk, staring at my mobile, their contact details glowing on the screen like accusations. Years of favoritism flashed through my mind. Every broken promise. Every time I'd paid for her mistakes. Every instance where I'd been expected to be the bigger person, the responsible one, the one who sacrificed for family unity. I was done being their emotional support animal. I blocked Brandy's number first. A simple action, really. Just a few taps. But it felt monumental. Liberating. Then Curtis's number. Then Loretta's. No more calls. No more texts. No more obligations. When Brandy tried reaching me through a friend's phone, because of course she did, whinging about how unfair I was being, I didn't respond. Curtis left a voicemail, his tone heavy with disappointment. This isn't how family works, Monique. I deleted it without listening to the whole thing. Life's too short for guilt trips. Loretta sent an email, begging me to reconsider for the sake of unity. As if unity had ever included me. As if I'd ever been part of their little triangle of dysfunction. I marked it as read but didn't reply. Tyrone rang a week later with an update on the Tesla repairs. Nearly done, he said. Then, sensing my mood because he's perceptive like that, he added, You're doing the right thing, you know. Sometimes you've got to draw a line. I know, I said quietly. And I did know. Cutting them off wasn't easy. It wasn't satisfying in the way revenge films make it look. There was no dramatic music swell, no moment of triumphant vindication. Tea was just necessary. Like removing a splinter. Uncomfortable. Slightly painful. But ultimately better than leaving it in to fester. Why life wasn't theirs to control anymore. I wasn't their safety net, their scapegoat, their convenient solution to problems they'd created. I was just Monique. 27 years old. Living in Dallas. Building a life that was finally my own. A year passed in blessed silence. No drama. No crisis calls. No one demanding I fix things I hadn't broken. IT was glorious. I settled into a new rhythm. My repaired Tesla, gleaming white, completely fixed, still mine, sat outside my modest one-bedroom flat in downtown Dallas. I'd moved from Plano, putting physical distance between me and the family drama like a sensible person creating boundaries. My marketing career properly took off after I landed a contract with a local startup. They were doing something with eco-friendly products and needed someone to craft campaigns that didn't sound like they'd been written by a committee of extremely earnest vegans. I was good at it. Really good at it. The contract brought in £4,000 monthly. Enough to cover rent, groceries, and small luxuries like weekend hikes in Cedar Hill or late-night takeaways when I couldn't be bothered to cook. I bought myself a home espresso machine. A proper one, not one of those sad plastic things that produces something vaguely coffee-adjacent. My shelves filled with books and plants from local markets. My walls got decorated with framed sketches from my first campaigns, visual reminders that I'd built something real without anyone's help. Tyrone checked in occasionally over coffee, updating me on his own agency's growth. You're absolutely killing it, he said one afternoon, his grin genuine. I smiled back, feeling lighter than I had in years. Possibly ever. Word about Brandy trickled through mutual contacts occasionally. The sort of information you don't seek out but somehow finds you anyway. Her marketing position had ended about 6 months ago. Not redundancy. Fired. For habitually missing deadlines and showing up late, habits her bosses couldn't overlook indefinitely. Despite whatever charm offensive she'd attempted, she'd bounced between temporary positions after that, struggling to pay rent without parental subsidy. Her social media went eerily quiet. No more party posts. No more weekend getaways. No more photographs of expensive brunches. I didn't reach out. Didn't gloat. Just noted the information and moved on with my day. Curtis and Loretta faced their own reckoning. Supporting Brandy's lifestyle had drained their savings. Turns out bankrolling your adult child's irresponsibility is expensive. They'd been forced to sell their house in Plano and downsize to a cramped rental in Garland. Neighbors apparently whispered about their financial difficulties. Their reputation as the perfect suburban family crumbled like cheap pastry. A colleague who knew them mentioned that Curtis had taken extra shifts at work whilst Loretta started doing part-time bookkeeping to make ends meet. They tried contacting me once, through a cousin, leaving some message about wanting to reconnect and working through their mistakes. I let it sit unanswered, and my phone remained blissfully free of their numbers. The Tesla still gleamed under the Texas sun. Driving it through Dallas streets, I felt no lingering anger. Just pride in what I'd earned and satisfaction in protecting it. Every client meeting, every new project was a step further away from their chaos. I joined a local networking group. Proper networking this time, not the sort where everyone's secretly calculating your usefulness. These were actual entrepreneurs who valued ideas and competence over family connections and willingness to be exploited. One evening at a downtown mixer, a client praised my latest campaign for boosting their sales significantly. "You've got a real knack for this," he said, handing me his card for another potential project. I took it, my confidence steady and earned. My flat became a sanctuary. A space that was entirely mine, filled with things I'd chosen, decorated how I wanted, free from anyone else's drama or expectations. The walls held framed artwork for my campaigns. Visual proof of what I'd built alone, without family support, despite active family hindrance. Their attempts to reach me continued sporadically. Loretta sent a letter, her handwriting shaky, claiming they missed me and wanted to fix things. The letter sat in a drawer, unread after the first paragraph. I couldn't bring myself to bin it completely, but I certainly wasn't responding. Curtis texted from a new number, asking to meet for coffee. I blocked that number too. It was almost impressive, their persistence. Like a particularly determined cold caller. Brandy tried emailing, her tone softer, claiming she was sorry but desperately needed help with bills. Delete. Their words didn't pull me back. The guilt they tried to invoke slid off like water off a properly waxed card. I'd spent years, decades, carrying their weight, fixing their messes, swallowing their excuses, sacrificing my peace for their comfort. That chapter was closed. The book was shelved. The library had been demolished and a car park built over it. Standing up to them hadn't been about revenge, despite how satisfying that might have been. It was about drawing a boundary. A proper, inflexible, this far and no further line in the sand. He was about choosing myself over their endless cycle of favoritism and dysfunction. The lesson wasn't easy. Learning to say no to family, to actually enforce consequences, felt like trying to swim upstream wearing concrete shoes. Every instinct I'd been raised with screamed that I was being selfish, unreasonable, a bad daughter and sister. But those instincts were wrong. They'd been programmed by people who benefited from my compliance. Family doesn't mean sacrificing your well-being indefinitely. It doesn't mean being a perpetual doormat, a mobile ATM, or an emotional support structure for people who give nothing back. Real family, healthy family, involves reciprocity, respect, basic consideration for each other's boundaries and belongings. What we had wasn't family. It was a hierarchy where I occupied the bottom rung, expected to hold everyone else up whilst slowly being crushed beneath their weight. By cutting them off, I found space to grow. To build a life where my worth wasn't tied to their approval or measured by my willingness to absorb their disasters. Dallas became my fresh start. Its skyline a backdrop to my freedom. Its sprawling highways a metaphor for the open road ahead. Cheesy perhaps, but I'll allow it. The Tesla still runs perfectly. Every time I drive it, I'm reminded that I can set a goal and achieve it. That I can protect what's mine. That I'm capable of making difficult decisions and living with the consequences. And honestly, the silence has been wonderful. No crisis calls at 3 in the morning. No demands for money I don't have. No expectations that I'll drop everything to fix problems I didn't create. Just me. My work. My life. My choices. If you've ever had to walk away from family to protect yourself, you know how brutally difficult it is. How it feels like you're simultaneously making the right decision and being utterly heartless. But sometimes, often actually, the bravest thing you can do is choose your own path. Even if it means walking alone. Especially if it means walking alone. Because being alone is infinitely better than being surrounded by people who treat you like an inexhaustible resource to be exploited until you've got nothing left. My therapist. Yes, I got one, because I'm not a complete disaster. Says I'm demonstrating healthy boundary enforcement and appropriate self-preservation. I say I'm just tired of being everyone's solution to their self-created problems. The outcome's the same either way. I'm free. My car's fixed. My career's thriving. My flat's peaceful. And my family. Well, they're learning what happens when the person who always fixed everything stops showing up to fix things. It's called consequences. And frankly, they're long overdue, so here's to expensive lessons learned through vehicular destruction. To boundaries enforced despite decades of conditioning. To choosing yourself even when everyone else calls you selfish. And to Tesla Model 3s. May they remain beautiful, functional, and firmly in the possession of their actual owners. Drop your stories in the comments. What time is it where you are? Have you ever had to cut off family to survive? Did they learn anything, or did they just find a new person to exploit? Hit like. Subscribe. Share this if it resonated, or if you just enjoy watching other people's family dysfunction from a safe distance. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is choose your own path, regardless of who you leave behind. Because at the end of the day, you can't set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. Especially when they're perfectly capable of finding their own bloody matches. They simply cannot take a hint. 18 months after I'd blocked them all, I was living my absolute best life. The kind of life that makes you wonder why you didn't make these choices sooner. My marketing consultancy had expanded. I'd taken on 2 junior associates who actually respected deadlines and didn't treat my belongings like community property. Revolutionary concept. That IT was a Saturday afternoon in April. I was in my flat, wearing joggers that had seen better days, hair in a messy bun, working on a presentation for a client who was paying me frankly obscene amounts of money to make their organic skincare line sound less pretentious. The irony wasn't lost on me. Then my building's intercom buzzed. I wasn't expecting anyone. My friends knew to text first because I'm not a barbarian who just shows up unannounced. Yes, I said into the speaker, slightly annoyed at the interruption. Monique. It's Mum. My entire body went rigid. Loretta's voice crackled through the ancient intercom system, tinny and desperate. Please, love. Just 5 minutes. We need to talk. We. I repeated slowly. Your father and I. We've been trying to reach you for months. Please. Just hear us out. I should have said no. Should have told them to leave. Should have maintained the boundary I'd spent 18 months building. But curiosity, that treacherous, terrible thing, got the better of me. Also, I'll admit, there was a small, vindictive part of me that wanted to see what desperation looked like on them. I'm not proud of it, but I'm also not going to lie about it. 5 minutes, I said. That's all you get. I buzzed them up, then spent the 30 seconds it took them to climb the stairs wondering if I'd just made a catastrophic mistake. When I opened the door, I barely recognized them. Curtis had aged a decade. His hair, which had been dignified silver, was now mostly gray-white. He'd lost weight, not in a healthy way, but in that gaunt, stressed way that speaks of too many missed meals and sleepless nights. Loretta looked worse. Her face was lined with worry, her clothes slightly shabby in a way they'd never been before. The woman who'd always been impeccably turned out now looked like she bought her wardrobe from a charity shop. Which, given their financial situation, she probably did. Thank you for seeing us, Curtis said, his voice hoarse. I didn't invite them to sit. Just stood in the doorway of my lovely flat with its nice furniture and its plants and its complete absence of their chaos. 5 minutes, I repeated. Clocks ticking. Loretta's eyes filled with tears immediately. Of course they did. We've made terrible mistakes, Monique. Terrible ones. We see that now. Do you? I asked flatly. Or are you here because things got difficult and you need someone to fix it? Curtis flinched. That's harsh. Is it though? I leaned against my doorframe. Let me guess. Supporting Brandy's lifestyle bankrupted you. The house is gone. Your savings are gone. And now you're here because you finally need me for something. The silence was answer enough. We were wrong, Loretta said quietly. About everything. How we treated you. How we enabled Brandy. We thought we were helping her, but we were just making it worse. Making what worse? I pressed. Her. Or your situation. Both, Curtis admitted, and at least he had the decency to look ashamed. She's in real trouble, Monique. Lost another job. Behind on rent. We can't help her anymore. We've got nothing left to give. Ah, there it was. The real reason for their visit. And you think I'm going to step in? I asked incredulously. After everything? After she destroyed my car, lied about it, refused to pay me back, and you enabled all of it? No, Loretta said quickly. No, we're not asking you to help her. We're trying to apologize. To tell you that you were right. About all of it. I studied them both. Looking for the manipulation, the angle, the hidden agenda. But all I saw was two exhausted people who'd finally run out of road. Where's Brandy now? I asked, against my better judgment. Living with a friend, Curtis said. Barely getting by. She's been asking about you. Wanting to apologize. I laughed. Actually laughed. I'm sure she is. Now that she needs something. It's not like that, Loretta protested weakly. Isn't it? I straightened up. Let me tell you what I think is happening. Brandy's finally facing consequences. Real ones. The kind she can't charm or cry her way out of. And you two have finally realized that protecting her from reality didn't actually protect her at all. It just delayed the inevitable whilst making it worse. Neither of them argued. Your 5 minutes are up, I said. Thank you for the apology. I accept that you've recognized your mistakes. But that doesn't mean I'm coming back. That doesn't mean I'm helping. That doesn't mean we're family again. Monique, please. Loretta reached for my hand. I stepped back. No. I spent 27 years being the one who fixed things. The one who sacrificed. The one who got blamed when things went wrong and overlooked when things went right. I'm done with that role. We understand, Curtis said quietly. We do. But, can't we at least stay in touch? Rebuild something. I considered it. Really considered it. Maybe, I said eventually. Someday. When I'm ready. If I'm ever ready. But not now. Not yet. You broke something that doesn't just heal because you've finally apologized. Loretta was crying properly now. We love you. We always have. You had a funny way of showing it, I said, not unkindly. Just truthfully. Love isn't just a feeling. It's actions. Choices. Respect. And you chose Brandy every single time. We know, Curtis said. And we'll have to live with that. Yes, I agreed. You will. I started closing the door, then paused. For what it's worth. I hope you figure things out. I hope Brandy figures things out. But I can't be part of that process. I won't be. We understand, Loretta whispered. I closed the door gently. Not a slam. Just closed. Then I stood there for a long moment, listening to their footsteps retreat down the stairs, feeling something I couldn't quite name. Not satisfaction. Not quite sadness either. Just closure, maybe. That evening, I did something my therapist had suggested months ago but I'd never felt ready for. I wrote a letter. Not to send. Just to process. To articulate everything I'd never been able to say when I was still trapped in their dysfunction. Dear Mum, Dad, and Brandy, I'm writing this knowing I'll never send it. But I need to say these things, even if only to myself. Growing up, I thought there was something wrong with me. I must be defective somehow, I reasoned, because nothing I did was ever quite good enough. Every achievement was minimized. Every mistake was magnified. Every time Brandy messed up, I somehow ended up sharing the blame. I spent years trying to earn your approval, your pride, your attention. I worked myself into the ground, thinking that if I just achieved enough, sacrificed enough, fixed enough problems, you'd finally see me the way you saw her. But you never did. And eventually I realized, it wasn't about what I did or didn't do. You'd already decided who we were. Brandy was the golden child who could do no wrong. I was the responsible one who could handle anything. The strong one who didn't need support. The reliable one who'd always be there to clean up the mess. That's not love. That's utility. You used me. Not maliciously, perhaps. You probably didn't even realize you were doing it. But you used my sense of responsibility, my desire for approval, my fear of conflict. You turned me into a family utility, functional, dependable, and utterly taken for granted. When Brandy destroyed my car, that wasn't really about the car. It was about every single time you'd chosen her feelings over my reality. Every time you'd asked me to be the bigger person. Every time you'd smoothed things over rather than holding her accountable. The car was just the final straw. I don't hate you. I don't even hate Brandy, really. I'm just done. Done being the family scapegoat. Done sacrificing my peace for your comfort. Done pretending that family means accepting mistreatment forever because we share DNA. You taught me what family shouldn't be. And for that, in a twisted way, I'm grateful. Because now I know what I'll never accept again. I hope you find peace. I hope Brandy learns and grows. I hope you all figure out how to be better to each other. But I won't be there to see it. I've built a life that's mine. Full of people who respect me, value me, and would never dream of treating me the way you did. It's not perfect. But it's peaceful. And after 27 years of chaos, peace feels like luxury. So this is goodbye. Not said in anger. Just said. Take care of yourselves. Learn from this. Do better. But do it without me. Monique. I folded the letter carefully, placed it in an envelope, and put it in my desk drawer. Closure doesn't always require an audience. Sometimes it's just for you. 3 months after my parents' visit, I was at a networking event in downtown Dallas. One of those slightly tedious but professionally necessary affairs where everyone pretends their canapés are interesting whilst secretly calculating business opportunities. I was discussing campaign strategies with a potential client, a woman launching a sustainable fashion line who actually seemed to understand that marketing wasn't just posting on Instagram, when I felt someone staring at me. You know that sensation. That prickling awareness that someone's watching. I turned, and there she was. Brandy. She looked different. Thinner. Hair less styled. Clothes that were professional but clearly not new. She was holding a glass of cheap wine and looking at me with an expression I'd never seen on her face before. Uncertainty. For a moment, we just stared at each other across the room. Then she made a decision, set down her glass, and walked over. Monique, she said quietly. Can we talk? Just for a moment. The woman I'd been speaking with looked between us, sensing drama with the instinct of someone who'd probably survived her own family nonsense. I'll go grab another drink, she said diplomatically. Find me later? I nodded, then turned to Brandy. 2 minutes, I said. And we're doing this here in public, where you can't make a scene. I wasn't going to make a scene, she said, and she actually sounded hurt. Which was rich, coming from someone who'd made a career out of dramatic displays. 2 minutes, I repeated. She took a breath. I'm sorry. Properly sorry. Not the fake apology I gave you before. I'm sorry for crashing your car. For lying about it. For taking advantage of you my whole life. For being a terrible sister. I waited. There had to be more. There was always more with Brandy. I'm not asking for anything, she continued, as if reading my mind. I'm not asking you to forgive me or let me back into your life or give me money or help. I'm just saying I'm sorry. Because you deserved better. You always deserved better. I studied her face, looking for the manipulation, the angle. But all I saw was someone who looked exhausted by her own chaos. What happened? I asked, Not quite kindly but not quite coldly either. She laughed, but it was bitter. Reality happened. Turns out when you spend your whole life having other people fix your problems, you never learn how to fix them yourself. Who knew? I did, I said dryly. I told you that. Multiple times. Yeah, well, I wasn't listening. She looked down at her hands. I've lost 3 jobs in 18 months. Can't keep a flat. Can't maintain friendships because I've spent years using people. Mum and Dad can't help anymore because I drained them dry. And I finally had to look in the mirror and admit that I'm the problem. That must have been quite a shock, I said, and I wasn't entirely being sarcastic. It was, she admitted. I'm in therapy now. Actual therapy. Paying for it myself with the pittance I make at my current job. Trying to figure out why I am the way I am. And apparently having parents who never hold you accountable doesn't actually help you develop into a functional adult. Wild, right? Despite myself, I felt a tiny flicker of something that might have been sympathy. Tiny. Very tiny. I'm glad you're getting help, I said carefully. Genuinely. But that doesn't change what happened. Or what you did. I know, she said immediately. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not sure I deserve it. I just wanted you to know that you were right. About all of it. And I'm sorry. We stood there in awkward silence for a moment. I still owe you £3,100, she said quietly. I haven't forgotten. I'm setting aside money each month. It'll take years, probably. But I will pay you back. Every penny. Brandy. No, she interrupted. I need to do this. Not for you. For me. I need to prove to myself that I can be accountable. That I can fix my own mess. Even if it takes forever. I didn't know what to say to that. Your 2 minutes are up, I said eventually. She nodded. Right. Yeah. I'll leave you alone. But thank you. For listening. She started to walk away, then turned back. For what it's worth. Your life looks amazing. The work you're doing. The way you carry yourself. You really did it. Built something real without any of us dragging you down. She smiled sadly. I'm proud of you. I know I've got no right to be, but I am. Then she left. And I stood there, holding my wine, feeling more conflicted than I'd felt in months. The following Tuesday, I was in my therapist's office. A blessedly calm space with plants that were actually alive and furniture that didn't look like it came from a prison waiting room. Dr. Chen was brilliant. Mid-50s, sharp as a tack, with exactly zero tolerance for self-deception. So, she said, after I'd recounted both encounters, how are you feeling about all of this? Confused, I admitted. For 18 months, it was simple. They were toxic. I cut them off. Life improved. Done. And now they're apologizing. Brandy's in therapy. My parents look broken. And I don't know what I'm supposed to feel. Dr. Chen leaned back in her chair. What do you want to feel? Vindicated, I said immediately. They're finally facing consequences. Finally admitting I was right. That's what I wanted. Isn't it? Is it? I sat with that question for a moment. I don't know, I said eventually. I thought watching them struggle would feel satisfying. Like justice. But it just feels sad. Why sad? Because it didn't have to be this way. The words came out more emotional than I'd intended. If they'd just listened. If they'd held Brandy accountable even once. If they'd treated me like I mattered. We could have been a normal family. But they chose not to. And now it's too late. Is it? Dr. Chen asked. Too late. I looked at her sharply. You think I should forgive them? I think, she said carefully, that forgiveness isn't an on-off switch. It's not, they apologized so now everything's fine. Or, they hurt me so I'll never speak to them again. It's more complicated than that. How complicated. You can acknowledge their apologies without letting them back into your life. You can recognize that Brandy's trying to change without trusting that she has. You can feel sympathy for your parents' situation without taking responsibility for fixing it. I mulled that over. You get to decide what boundaries serve you, Dr. Chen continued. Maybe that's no contact forever. Maybe it's limited contact on your terms. Maybe it's something in between. But the decision is yours. Not theirs. Not society's. Yours. What if I choose wrong? I asked quietly. What does wrong look like? Let them back in and they hurt me again. Or keep them out and regret it later. Dr. Chen smiled gently. You're assuming there's a perfect choice that prevents all pain. There isn't. Every option has risks. The question is, which risks can you live with? I spent weeks thinking about Dr. Chen's question. Which risks could I live with? Eventually, I made a decision. Not because it was right or wrong. Just because it felt honest, I sent an email to my parents. Not warm. Not cold. Just clear. Mum and Dad, I received your apology. I accept that you've recognized your mistakes and are genuinely sorry. That matters. However, accepting an apology doesn't mean resuming our previous relationship. That relationship was unhealthy, and I won't return to it if you'd like to build something new, something based on mutual respect and actual boundaries. I'm potentially open to that. Eventually. Here are my terms. 1. We start slowly. 1 coffee every few months. No expectations beyond that. Point 2. Brandy is not discussed unless I bring her up. This isn't about her anymore. Point 3. You don't ask me for money, favors, or to mediate family problems. Point 4. If you violate these boundaries, I walk away again. Permanently. Point 5. This is not negotiable. You don't get input on my terms. You either accept them or you don't. Think about it. Let me know. Monique. They responded 2 days later. A short email from Dad. We accept your terms. Thank you for giving us a chance. We'll do better. We promise. Dottie stared at that email for a long time. Then I filed it away and went back to work. As for Brandy, I didn't respond to her apology directly. But I did send a brief text. I hope therapy helps. I hope you figure things out. But I'm not ready for a relationship with you yet. Maybe someday. Maybe not. We'll see. If you want to pay me back, set up a standing order. I'll accept the payments. But don't expect regular updates or reconciliation just because you're paying your debt. Take care of yourself. She responded simply. Understood. Thank you. And that was that. It's been 2 years since the Tesla incident now. I'm 30. My consultancy has 6 employees. We just signed a contract with a major brand that'll keep us busy for the next 2 years minimum. The Tesla still runs perfectly. I've added a custom plate. Earned it. Petty? Perhaps. But I've earned my pettiness. I've had coffee with my parents 4 times. Brief meetings. Civil. Sometimes almost pleasant. We talk about neutral things. Their jobs, my work, the weather. Nothing deep. Nothing that requires emotional vulnerability. It's not the relationship I wanted as a child. But it's the one I can handle as an adult. Brandy sends £200 monthly. Like clockwork. She's halfway through paying me back. She emails occasionally. Updates about her therapy, her progress, her life. I read them. Sometimes I respond. Sometimes I don't. We're not friends. We're not really sisters. Not in any meaningful way. But we're not enemies either. We're just 2 people who share a history and are trying to do better. Is it perfect? No. Is it healthy? More or less. Is it enough? For now, yes. Because here's what I've learned. You don't owe anyone unlimited chances just because they're family. You don't have to set yourself on fire to keep them warm. You don't have to accept crumbs and call it love. But you also don't have to close every door forever if you don't want to. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. Boundaries don't mean you're cold. Protecting yourself doesn't make you selfish. It just makes you sensible, and why life is mine now. Properly mine. And if my family wants to be part of it, they have to respect that. If they can't, well, I'll manage just fine without them. I already have.